Under the warm Sinai sun, the Egyptian resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh once again becomes a crossroads of diplomacy and symbolism. The Red Sea glimmers in the distance as banners stretch across the airport road, bearing the faces of US President Donald Trump and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Below them, a single message greets every delegation: welcome to the land of peace. It is both a promise and a challenge. World leaders are arriving to attend the long-anticipated Gaza Peace Summit of 2025, a gathering that could redefine the political landscape of the Middle East after nearly a year of devastating conflict. Helicopters buzz over the coastline, motorcades glide through layers of security. For Egypt, the host nation, this is a moment of renewed prominence, an assertion of its role as regional mediator and bridge between worlds that seldom agree. The first arrival draws cameras and commentary alike. Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar, steps from his jet onto the red carpet. His country has been at the heart of negotiations that secured the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Behind his calm demeanor lies months of delicate shuttle diplomacy, phone calls to Washington, back-channel talks with Doha, coordination with the CIA and Mossad, and humanitarian corridors through Egypt's Rafah crossing. For the Emir, this summit is a test of his nation's credibility and perhaps its greatest diplomatic stage yet. President el-Sisi greets him warmly. The handshake is firm, the smiles deliberate. To onlookers, it is a gesture of Arab unity, but to those inside the negotiating rooms, it is a sign of the careful choreography that defines Middle Eastern politics. Egypt and Qatar, often rivals in regional influence, now stand side by side in pursuit of the same fragile goal: a lasting peace. Moments later, another motorcade arrives. French President Emmanuel Macron emerges, greeted with applause from the assembled diplomats. France has long seen itself as the conscience of Western diplomacy in the Arab world, championing humanitarian aid and the two-state solution. Macron's presence signals Europe's deep anxiety. Protests have erupted in Paris, Berlin, and London, calling for accountability and reconstruction. European voters demand moral clarity. Macron, aware of the shifting tides at home, uses this summit to reaffirm France's commitment to law, dialogue, and peace. As cameras flash, Macron and el-Sisi pose before the summit banner. Each handshake captured by photographers represents weeks of negotiation, a sequence of images designed to project calm amid crisis. Yet beneath the ceremonial smiles, uncertainty lingers about who will lead Gaza's recovery, who will control its borders, and who will pay the immense cost. Next comes Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, a familiar figure in these halls of diplomacy, yet one whose arrival is perhaps the most symbolic. Only 2 years ago, Turkey and Egypt were estranged, trading accusations over Libya, energy rights, and ideology. Today, they stand together, a reflection of shifting pragmatism. Erdogan has tempered his rhetoric in recent weeks, signaling cooperation in reconstruction and offering to contribute engineers and peace monitors. His handshake with el-Sisi, once unthinkable, marks a new phase of cautious collaboration, driven not by friendship, but by necessity. Then arrives Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, his expressions solemn. For him, the summit is more than diplomacy. It is survival, representing a people whose suffering has reached unimaginable levels. Over 67,000 killed, 169,000 injured, and 90% displaced. Abbas comes seeking more than promises. He demands guarantees that Gaza's reconstruction will not be decided over Palestinian heads. The photo of his meeting with el-Sisi is brief, but its message profound. Palestine's voice must not be lost amid global agendas. From South Asia arrives Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan. His country's participation underscores a wider Muslim solidarity stretching from Islamabad to Jakarta. Pakistan, already providing humanitarian aid, advocates what Sharif calls an immediate and irreversible peace roadmap. Standing beside el-Sisi, he pledges Pakistan's support for rebuilding Gaza's hospitals and schools, framing it as both a humanitarian duty and a test of collective conscience. A quieter arrival follows: Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. A newcomer to global politics, but a veteran of global finance, Carney embodies the economic dimension of this summit. Behind closed doors, discussions swirl around a $70 billion Gaza reconstruction fund, a massive initiative involving the World Bank, IMF, and regional donors. Carney, once governor of the Bank of England, brings financial discipline to a summit long driven by political emotion. His message is pragmatic. Peace will last only if it can be financed sustainably. Then comes Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni walking briskly down the carpet. Italy's Mediterranean position makes it a critical partner in logistics, energy and migration control. Meloni insists that Europe must not be reduced to a spectator in a process dominated by Washington and regional powers. Her handshake with el-Sisi symbolises Europe's intent to stay engaged, ensuring humanitarian aid and reconstruction flow through secure maritime routes. From Riyadh arrives Prince Faisal bin Farhan, Saudi Arabia's foreign minister, representing Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Riyadh's position is clear: normalization with Israel can only proceed once Palestinians have a credible path to sovereignty. Behind the scenes, Saudi and American diplomats are drafting a framework that links reconstruction funds to political guarantees, a strategy meant to turn economic leverage into lasting stability. For el-Sisi, the Saudi delegation's participation underscores Egypt's success in reuniting Arab diplomacy around one table. Inside the summit hall, the atmosphere is electric. Flags from more than 20 nations line the backdrop. Delegates from the United Nations, the Arab League and the African Union take their seats. The main stage bears the emblem Gaza Peace Summit 2025, the road to reconstruction. Every detail, from seating charts to security checkpoints, has been meticulously planned, yet what happens inside remains unpredictable. For President Trump, this gathering is the centerpiece of his 20-point Gaza peace plan, unveiled just weeks ago in Washington. The plan merges immediate humanitarian relief with a phased political process, a monitored Israeli withdrawal, supervised reconstruction zones, and an international observer force led by Egypt and Jordan. Critics call it ambitious, others call it naive, but all agree it is historic. For President el-Sisi, this is Egypt's moment to reclaim its diplomatic legacy. Since Camp David in 1978, Cairo has positioned itself as a custodian of peace, balancing regional identities with global expectations. Hosting this summit reinforces that image, a message to the Arab world that Egypt remains the bridge between East and West. As discussions begin, three major themes dominate: humanitarian access, political guarantees, and economic reconstruction. The morning session focuses on stabilizing the ceasefire. US Envoy Jared Kushner, alongside Admiral Brad Cooper, briefs attendees on monitoring mechanisms and safe passage zones for displaced civilians. Reports suggest a multinational peace observer contingent composed of Egyptian, Jordanian and Moroccan forces may soon deploy inside Gaza. In parallel, Qatari and Turkish officials present proposals for a joint Arab development fund, a streamlined financial mechanism to prevent political misuse of reconstruction aid. They propose direct funding for schools, hospitals and water plants under transparent oversight, ensuring accountability to both donors and Gazans. European representatives, led by France and Italy, press for human rights benchmarks and long-term governance reforms. Macron's aides emphasise that rebuilding without justice would mean rebuilding on sand. Canadian and Saudi delegates echo the sentiment: peace must be structured, measurable and real. Outside the venue, hundreds gather behind barricades. Some wave Palestinian flags, others carry placards bearing the names of hostages. The voices merge into a single chant, calling for the ceasefire to hold. The air hums with both hope and exhaustion. For the families of hostages and the displaced, this summit represents the faintest flicker of closure after months of darkness. In Gaza itself, scenes of cautious return unfold. Families walk among ruins, children clutching school bags through shattered streets. Hospitals, some operating on generators, prepare to receive medicine promised through international convoys. Humanitarian agencies warn that any disruption could reverse fragile progress. The human dimension weighs heavily over Sharm el-Sheikh's grandeur. Throughout the afternoon, negotiations continue in closed-door sessions. Diplomatic sources describe a cautious optimism. As one European envoy puts it, this is a rare window when everyone needs peace more than they need pride. The phrase captures the sentiment coursing through the summit's corridors, a recognition that fatigue has finally created space for compromise. By evening, a draft declaration begins circulating among delegations. It reaffirms commitment to the Trump-brokered ceasefire and outlines next steps for prisoner exchanges, humanitarian access, and reconstruction oversight. It also calls on both Israel and Hamas to respect international humanitarian law, a clause many insisted must be included. While the language remains cautious, diplomats hail it as a breakthrough. As the sun sets over the Red Sea, the summit hall glows under floodlights. Inside, leaders prepare for a working dinner hosted by President el-Sisi and First Lady el-Sisi. Seated together, Trump, Macron, Erdogan, Abbas and others, they share a rare moment of civility. Trump raises a glass of pomegranate juice, smiling as cameras click. He declares, "This is the beginning of something beautiful, a great day for peace." The words echo across the hall, hopeful and theatrical, quintessentially Trump. Yet beyond the photo ops, challenges loom. Israel's domestic politics remain volatile. Hamas's internal factions remain divided. Iran watches skeptically, warning against what it calls cosmetic diplomacy. Still, the symbolism of Sharm el-Sheikh matters. For once, the region's leaders are talking not about war, but about what comes after. Night deepens over the Sinai. Helicopters hover over the coastline as delegations depart their first-day meetings. A few lights remain on inside the summit hall, rooms where aides refine communiques and adjust wording that could shape tomorrow's headlines. Outside, the banner still flutters. Welcome to the land of peace. For the people of Gaza, the next few days will determine whether that phrase becomes reality or another forgotten slogan. For Egypt, the success of this summit could cement its place as a regional power broker once more. For Donald Trump, it could define the legacy of his second term, transforming a ceasefire into a peace process and a photo op into history. As dawn approaches, reporters from around the world file their dispatches. They describe the summit as both improbable and essential, a moment when former enemies shared the same table and, briefly, the same hope. The narrative of the day becomes clear. Against a backdrop of ruin, diplomacy is alive again. And so, under the calm desert sky, Sharm el-Sheikh stands once more as the meeting place of hope and realism. Here, amid the swirl of languages and agendas, the leaders of 2025 seek to do what generations before them could not, to give Gaza and the wider region a future beyond war. Whether that promise endures will depend on what follows in the coming days. But tonight, at least, the world watches, waits, and dares to believe that peace might, at last, have a chance.